Hey, what's up, everybody, and welcome back to News Dose. So, one of the big discussions this generation has been about Xbox's first-party productivity. I personally think that they started out strong, but then they kind of tapered off last year where they had this major AAA first-party drought. But according to Xbox, that is now a thing of the past. Not only did Phil Spencer speak out on this, but we also heard from their CMO, and they had some rather interesting things to say about all of this. Also, Sony said that they're recently looking for ways to reach their fiscal year goal, and that continues on with a new promotion, though this is also rather interesting for one other reason, and I'm going to explain why today. Let's go and get things kicked off, though, with Armored Core 6. I mean, From Software just knows how to make good games. And the genre, I mean, it just doesn't really matter. I know there's been a lot of curious eyes on this game because, it is the first time we've seen them take on a completely different genre from the Soulsborne games in well over a decade. A lot of people will be jumping into the Armored Core franchise for the first time, and well, it appears they have taken that growing knowledge and really applied it to Armored Core 6 with absolutely flying colors. As of this recording, it currently sits at an 87 overall score on Metacritic with 50 total reviews. Now, if you actually look at the split here, 48 of those reviews are positive, whereas only 2 of them are mixed. And to just kind of put things into perspective here, while Armored Core has a long-time, passionate core fan base, no pun intended, this has never really been a critically acclaimed series. Prior to the newest entry, the best-rated Armored Core game was actually Armored Core 2, and that only got a 78. So this is a massive jump here. And again, it just seems like From Software has really figured things out. They've learned a lot with the Soulsborne games. But here, they're proving that they're not just confined to that one single genre. They can do so much more than that. And, I mean, from what I've seen from the reviews, Armored Core 6 is a ton of fun. It has a lot of customization as you'd expect from the Armored Core series. The level design is absolutely top-notch. It's got some incredible boss fights as you might expect from Software. And then one consistent thing that I continue to hear is that they nailed the controls. It's easy to pick up and understand because the controls are so intuitive. I think with all that, now I just kind of wonder how this game is going to sell. I fully 100% expect this to be the best-selling entry in the franchise, also the fastest. I expect to hear that within just the first month alone, but I want to see how high this game can rise, especially with just how jam-packed this year has been. Either which way, though, Armored Core 6 will be out tomorrow on August 25th, so definitely go check it out. Now, we also got an update for Stalker 2. We knew that this game was going to be at Gamescom, but it didn't actually show up at Opening Night Live as some of us were expecting. But it is at the Xbox booth. Of course, this is a Game Pass game, and they did give us a more concrete release window. Unfortunately, it has officially been delayed out of 2023, though I don't think that that's really all that surprising, just considering the issues that GSC has dealt with. I mean, they've had some legit problems over there. But the good news here is that they are now planning to release it in Q1 of 2024. So this means that it's likely to release between January and March of next year, which ironically, I honestly think that that's a better slot for Stalker 2. I mean, if you just look at the next 4 months for gaming, it's just honestly so incredibly stacked to the point there's going to be games that are unfortunately overlooked. So I think Stalker 2 releasing at the beginning of 2024 will give us some breathing room to really stand out on its own. And I mean, if it plays as good as it looks, it could get a lot of buzz when it eventually releases. In the meantime, those Stalker fans, yes, unfortunately might have to wait a little while longer, but hopefully that wait will be well worth it. While we're talking about Xbox games, though, Phil Spencer made the rounds yesterday with several interviews, and as you'd expect from him, he's a treasure trove of information. He always comes off great in interviews, but there's one thing that he said that really stood out to me, and that was about the future of Xbox and their lineup of games. That has been a constant question when it comes to the Xbox brand. Their first-party lineup has failed in comparison to Nintendo and PlayStation. But under Phil Spencer's reign, Xbox has acquired a ton of new studios. They went from like 5 total studios during the Xbox One era to 23 in a stretch of like 4 years. And I mean, they're still trying to get Activision Blizzard, which will spike that number up above 30 total studios. That is hard to believe compared to what they were during the beginning of the Xbox One era. It is absolutely crazy. Kudos to Phil Spencer just once again, getting Microsoft to fully invest into the Xbox brand. So what I can kind of say here is that they have put in the work to get the talent over at Xbox, but now we need to see the execution. It's been a long wait for Xbox gamers, but games, they do take a long time to develop, and according to Phil Spencer, and also the Xbox CMO, the time is now. The Xbox CMO was quoted as saying that he believes that Starfield is the starting gun for Xbox's first-party games. His exact quote was, "This is, in my mind, the doorway, almost like a starting gun, to what I think is going to be a multi-year relay race of first-party titles." And this is something that was seemingly echoed by Phil Spencer in a completely separate interview with IGN, where he was asked about the rest of 2023 and beyond, where he said, "What I can say is we're going to have more beats to talk about, more of what we do because the content lineup is so strong." So I think what you're going to see from us, where maybe the last couple years we've been more on an annual in terms of when we talk about our games around, I still call it E3, the E3 timeframe. This year, we did the Developer Direct in January, we did our showcase, we're here at Gamescom in the biggest way we've ever been, and you're going to see more regular times to talk about our games because the portfolio is deep enough that we can support that. So, this is what those acquisitions have all led to. Now, personally, I always thought that this was a little bit of a strange topic, honestly, just because, it feels like people willingly ignore at times that games do take a long time to develop. And when Xbox acquired a lot of these studios, they already had prior commitments. Double Fine, as an example, they were previously working on Psychonauts 2, though Xbox, they did help fund that game for further improvements. Same thing happened with Wasteland 3 and NXO. Obsidian, that was another studio that was working on Outer Worlds prior to the Xbox acquisition. Compulsion, they were working on We Happy Few at the time of its buyout. And that was the case for a lot of these new studios. It does take time to integrate new studios and go forth as a team, Xbox with these new studios. And that is kind of where we are now. Xbox and these new acquisitions have been together long enough that they can finally deliver on their visions together. Now, Bethesda is a little bit different just because a lot of their games wasn't already announced as multi-platform prior to their acquisition. So Xbox has a little bit more leeway, a little bit more freedom claiming those exclusive titles, games like Starfield as an example. But even with Ghostwire Tokyo and Deathloop, those were two other games that had a contract with Sony prior to the acquisition. What you really need to kind of understand with these quotes, though, is that we've kind of moved past that point, and now Xbox's first-party droughts, they seem to be a thing of the past, and it all starts with Starfield, the starting gun, as the Xbox CMO alluded to. After that, you have Forza, and then next year you have Hellblade 2, and then Avowed, and even after that, there's Fable, Perfect Dark, The Elder Scrolls 6, you have Indiana Jones in the pipeline, I imagine a new Doom title, and it just seems like they've finally gotten to the point that fans have craved for such a long time. Now, actually, speaking of integrating new studios, Phil Spencer also clarified how the ABK acquisition will work once it's completed. The assumption right now is that if Microsoft completes the buyout, they're just going to drop all the ABK games into Game Pass the very next day. But Phil said that's not actually true. Rather, he clarified by saying there's work to actually move games to Game Pass. It'll take us time, definitely time to get the games in the portfolio. So with that in mind, don't go in expecting Diablo 4 to be in Game Pass the day after the buyout. That would be fantastic and everything, but it's going to take them time, and I think it's nice that he is being transparent about the entire situation. I think the bigger question here, though, really just comes in the way of Modern Warfare 3. That's the big new Activision title for 2023, and I do kind of wonder if they'll have that game ready for a day one release. That game is releasing in November, and the acquisition should be complete by October 18th, so will they have enough time to get that ready for day one? For that matter, there's also some speculation with the Sony deal. They do have the marketing rights for Call of Duty after all, and we don't really know how that will work with Game Pass for the time being. But the good news here is that this is the last year for Sony's marketing, and then for sure, starting in 2024, every Call of Duty will release directly into Xbox Game Pass Ultimate after that. Still kind of hard to believe that, but either way, it truly sounds like the future of Xbox is brighter than ever before. And I mean, Starfield, guys, just a few more days, and we can see if that hype is legit. Now, PlayStation also made news today, and that's for another promotion. They're really trying to push as many PS5s out the door with these summer discounts. The PlayStation 5 for the first time this generation got a $50 discount, which is great to see, but apparently they haven't stopped. They're now introducing another temporary discount, this time, though, for select European regions. I'm seeing right now Spain and Portugal, and this will run from August 25th to September 7th. So if you are in one of these regions, and if you're on the market for a PlayStation 5, the time to buy is right now. I'd actually say that this is perfect timing as well. Final Fantasy 16, that just released a few months ago. I think that that's an amazing game. Baldur's Gate 3 is also set to release next month on September 7th. That's a legit Game of the Year candidate. And then in October, you have the big blockbuster first-party title, Spider-Man 2. So PlayStation, they have a pretty good lineup of games right now, though these discounts are interesting for another reason as well. I guess a couple, actually. And the reason I say that is because Sony has already said that they're trying to reach 25 million units sold for their fiscal year goal. And one way that they intend to do that is by offering these discounts. Now, they've already publicly said this, so this is not conjecture. But I think if you kind of put the puzzle together here, this also lines up with a rather interesting leak that's been going around. That new PlayStation 5 model that's set to replace the current PlayStation 5 consoles. A new PlayStation 5 with a detachable disc drive. It almost kind of seems like they're trying to clear stock up with these promotions just to kind of make way for their replacement, which that does kind of make sense. I think especially with the PlayStation 5 Digital Edition. The PlayStation 5 Digital Edition will be a lot less enticing with the new PS5 because the new PS5 is just going to offer more options with an expanded disc drive if you want one. Now, the PS5 physical, on the other hand, I don't think that that's really going to be all that affected unless it's just more expensive, with that disc drive combined. But I guess that's something that you need to at least be aware of with these discounts. If you do like the idea of a digital PS5, but if you think you might want a disc drive later down the road, well, then it might be best to just wait for the new PS5 console, which, it looks like this thing is real. Tom Henderson has more than proven to be a legitimate insider. And we also saw video footage just earlier this month. We can debate if that was a fake, but either way, I do firmly believe that this new PS5 is real, and it is coming sometime soon. If not September, I'd expect before the end of 2023. Now, one other thing that I want to talk about is some new but old school retro games that was just announced by Night Dive Studios, the same studio that just released the pretty spectacular Quake 2 remaster. They have a pretty good reputation. That game is excellent. Go check it out. And they're now bringing us both Turok 3 and apparently Star Wars Dark Forces. Now, I've never played Dark Forces before, but I do hear it's a pretty awesome Star Wars game if you do like that series. But I will say this much. Turok 3 definitely has me excited. Growing up, I always loved the atmosphere and setting for the Turok series, the dinosaurs, the gore. This series is just a lot of fun to play. Even Turok Evolution, which, I understand a lot of people didn't like that game, but I personally loved that game as a kid, and it's just so cool to see Night Dive revive this series. Turok 1 and 2 are already available on modern platforms, but now you can complete the trilogy when it releases later this year for the Nintendo Switch, Xbox, PlayStation, and PC. So the whole shebang is here exactly as we want it. Let's go take a look at the poll of the day, though, where I asked you all, are you interested in Sony's new handheld, the PlayStation Portal, for $199? And yeah, most of you all gave it a hard pass, with 86% voting no, whereas only 5% said yes, and then 6% are still undecided. And that's kind of the thing about this device. It is niche, being a remote play only console, and the fact that it can't do cloud streaming, I think, makes it even more niche than what it already is. I think there is a small market that might be interested, but I think for a lot of people, they're kind of asking themselves, why should I get this when my phone can already do the same thing? And that way, I don't have to spend $200. Like I've said before, though, I think that that's where those impressions, those early reviews are going to be so important. Now, maybe if reviews claim that it's much better than what phones can offer right now, then maybe more people will then jump on. But just from its description alone, I think the PlayStation Portal is a hard sell for the time being. Nonetheless, I'll go ahead and join the undecided group here. This is not the PlayStation Vita 2 that I wanted. I absolutely love that thing. But I'll wait for those reviews before making my final decision. Anyways, that's it for this episode. But if you like the video, don't forget to bell notification and subscribe button for more content just like this. Also, if you'd like to support the channel through Patreon, thank you for making this content possible. Peace out.